And that's the key, isn't it? And that word is so difficult because we live in a society that is full of limitation through our programming.
Yes.
So to break that cycle of limited thought, feelings, and ideas, can be quite, again, coming back to that word fear.
Yeah. We are you're absolutely right. Culturally, I mean, you just look at advertising, everything, and people are so, I turn off the advertisements if they ever come up, but just pop up on YouTube or in your TV or whatever. Yeah. It's just like we're so acculturated to think within certain boxes, because if we can be boxed up, we can be consumerized. I don't know if I just made up a word, but you know what I mean.
I like that. Yeah, consumerized. I'm going to keep that.
Yeah, we can be consumerized, and if that works, then the whole machine of business and finance and everything works. And there's nothing wrong with business. Like I'm a proponent of good ethical business, but that's part of it. And having the ability to see when one is being consumerized and stepping away from it is another state of spiritual self-awareness, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's, for me, my personal journey starting on meditation and making notes was crucial, because you start to realize who you are and where you are, but also the tiny insignificant little dot, or whatever you want to call it, you are in the multiverse.
Yeah,
but it's a beautiful thing because you're a part of that multiverse.
We're much bigger and smaller than people realize. When people start getting involved, they go, well, I'm so important. I call my friend George came up with this phrase. He calls it the importance of being important. When we get into this importance of being important thing, we think we're so big. We're bigger than we really are.
Absolutely.
And yet we are bigger than we are from a consciousness standpoint.
Yes.
That's absolutely the part of the bigness that people don't grasp.
No, it's more about the car on the drive.
Yes,
or the job,
exactly.
or the paycheck.
And And which car do you have on the drive? That whole thing.
So that's a wonderful thing. So for me, meditation is crucial for any kind of development. But I was going to ask on a personal note. Forgive me for bringing this experience up for you. Have you connected with mother again? Have you heard from your mom? Do you connect with family from the other side?
Oh yeah. So I'll tell you about a recent experience. But my mom died. My dad died. So my mom died in 1982. My dad died in 1999. So I talk about that in my first book, my dad visiting us right before his funeral service at the military cemetery, right?
Yeah.
And he visited us 3 different times. It was like, whoa, and it's like, just completely out of the blue.
Yeah.
Playing with the electricity, opening a door that, how could that door be open by itself, and so forth. But more recently, I went to my uncle's funeral literally about 10 months ago, and flew cross country. So it was my first trip, actually. COVID. I got in an airplane, first time getting in an airplane since the whole COVID thing, and flew to the funeral. And of course, I'm sad. He's 90s, but at least he had a good long life and so forth. But I was very close to him and his wife, who is my mother's sister. She's still alive. My Aunt Jo is still alive. Josephine's still alive. But I was very close to them because they didn't have children, couldn't have children. And so I was almost like the surrogate for a number of years, and then they adopted much later in life. But so it's close to him. I go to the funeral, and I'm sad, but because I think the meditation has really developed this state of inner contentment within me. You don't become a robot. I tell my students, this is an example of, I'm not a robot. I'm still very sad and upset and so forth, but my inner peace is not overshadowed, overwhelmed by the sadness of my experience, the grief of my uncle's death. And I was there, and they were doing some military thing. He was in the Korean War and so forth, fighting for the U.S. Army and so forth. But so they had a military thing there at the funeral and so forth, folding the flag and so forth. And right after they folded the flag, he popped in and he thanked me for coming. I was standing right next to my aunt and her children and their children. They were sitting next to me. And I was standing there with a couple of hundred people there at the cemetery. And he popped in and he just talked to me a little bit and thanked me and so forth. And talked a little bit about, how he's doing and on the other side and so forth. So I've had experiences like that from, that's probably happened to me 1,000 times since 1986.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, the ability to connect with your loved ones.
Yeah, it is. It is. And they're okay and everybody's fine. And
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it helps us to heal, doesn't it? It helps us in that process, I guess.
Yeah, and also to understand that there is no end to life, really. I mean, there's an end to a biological, physical structure. It's going to end, but the consciousness, our mind, our soul, our spirit, whatever word people want to use, continues, and it continues, and it continues.
I mean, I had an experience whilst meditating where I felt I had a separation from the body, where I was looking down on my body.
Yeah.
And realizing that actually I am not my body. And that happened probably the first year of me doing a meditation routine. And that's a wonderful experience in itself.
Yeah.
And not wanting to come back from that, I have to admit, it was such a beautiful feeling although it was just stillness. It wasn't, I was gone anywhere. I was just aware of the physical body.
Right.
Being my shell, my carrier, so to speak, and I wasn't that. I was something completely different.
Exactly. So that's very beautifully said, and I think very accurately said. We are not our bodies. There's a consciousness or our mind, again, whatever you want to, soul, spirit, whatever word you want to use, that is separate from our physical biological body.
Yeah.
And I think that experience, as soon as people start having that experience, that's when a lot of the fears about death and dying start to dissipate and reduce, because the fears about death and dying typically are about a loss of physical body.
Yeah.
And once you realize that the mind and the body influence each other, yes, absolutely, they influence each other both ways. But are they the same? Are they identical? No, they're not. And so when you have that experience that you just described, that's when you have the realization that my mind is, in fact, distinct and separate from my body.
Yeah, which science is now starting to realize that this is a real phenomenon. I mean, obviously, the work of Professor Raymond Moody was probably a milestone in near-death experiences, explaining that. And we've got a gentleman over here as well. His name's just gone right out of my head, typical. And he felt back in the 70s, it's a very American thing, but actually he was gobsmacked when a gentleman walked in and had the very same experience. So he then devoted his life to the work, and very similar to Professor Raymond Moody. So again, it's lots of, my own father had an NDE. And so again, it's about experiencing that separation, that we are part of the whole. But again, having that faith, and I guess that certainly helped me. Now, for me personally, that the death of dying isn't particularly a great one. The thought of dying isn't particularly great. It's how I die. That's probably around. So I try not to think about it. I don't really want to get hit by a 10-ton truck,
Yeah. The how is a different fear. That's different from the fear of death itself.
Yeah.
So that's my second book, which I am working to finish right now, which I call it, they're related fears to death and dying. And so, but you've taken the first big step, though, towards relieving yourself or reducing and eliminating that fear, which is the understanding and the experience that the mind is separate from the body. Because if the mind is separate from the body, pain and suffering are associated with the body. Yes, they are translated into a mental experience, of course, but to the extent that we understand that the experience can be separated between the mind and the body, at that moment, if you are in extreme pain, you can separate yourself from the physical pain of the body and the mind can be free of that. Now, it's difficult for most people to wrap their minds around that.
Yes.
But I talk about that in one of the YouTube videos, overcoming.
You have.
Pain.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a lot on there. But Woody Allen once said, "I'm not afraid of dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens."
Exactly. Yeah.
And I found it hilarious. And again, that's part of the process, part of the healing process, isn't it? Of meditation helped me to connect with myself and the infinite consciousness, if you like. Because I'm not sure, because there's so many things, Kelvin, I'd love to touch on and talk with you. I know we have limited time.
Yeah, well, we could do it again another time.
I'd love that. That'd be brilliant. But the other thing is, you also mentioned about the angelics in one of your books.
Sure.
And connecting with the angelics. Now, I know it to be, it's always a big statement when people talk about their experiences, because it comes from very much a personal experience. But some of the things you talk about when connecting with the angelics are very, very much the same as my own experience with connecting with the angelics. So I know, for me, I know it to be true.
Yeah.
But I mean, for those viewers that are listening that have never had any kind of connection with the angelics, was there a first kind of connection with the angelics that blew you away, or just an awareness of them?
Yeah, the first time it was 1986, when I was just sitting alone in my condo with my dog and my cat. So I was the only human being in the room. My dog and my cat sleeping on the floor, and it was either during or after one of my meditations, even during sitting there in the rest period, probably, or something like that. And some just started coming through, just information. And I wasn't sure am I making this up? Like, what's this higher self thing? And whatever. Like, I'm sitting.
Because you do think like, am I making this up?
Exactly.
Am I crazy?
Am I crazy? Exactly. I went through this whole thing, and actually my identity, I call it an identity crisis. I went through an identity crisis for about a year and a half. Because this went on every time I closed my eyes once it started. Yeah. And at first it was a bunch of these. When I say angels, first of all, you could think of anybody on the other side as angelic, because they don't have a physical biological body. They have a light body. Okay. But when I'm using the phrase or the term angels, I mean beings who have never been incarnate in a physical form. So I'm not talking about your dead grandmother or my dead mother or father, whatever. Although some people can view them as guardian angels and that kind of thing.
Sure.
But so I'm using the term angel more specifically as beings who have never been incarnated in a physical form before. And they exist on the other side. So they said and then there were archangels. So it was Archangel Michael, and it's coming through in 1986. And it was mostly, I'd say probably 80% Archangel Michael, and then, maybe, 10%, I wasn't measuring this, but, 10% Gabriel and Uriel and Raphael, the other 5%, something like that. But it was mostly Michael coming through. And every time we come through, it was like my condo, my 1.5 bedroom condo in this Victorian house was as if full with thousands of other angelic types, just like I couldn't see them, but I could feel their energy just crowding in there going, what's he talking about with Kelvin? It's like that kind of thing. And then, it was just like that. But what I realized after, I can't remember, again, this is an example of take notes, write it down in a journal. I never thought I'd be talking about this stuff. Yeah. After some months of this, because it was going on every day and then I started taping it. That you had these boom boxes back in the 1980s, and I used to tape it, and then I started transcribing them. And then I went to a books, and I still was thinking, Paul, I still think, am I making this stuff? Am I watching too many science fiction movies or whatever? And then so I went to a bookstore. I was in Boston, Massachusetts at the time, and working at a law firm. And then I took a break, and I went on a big, took a week off or something, and I went to LA. Los Angeles, and I went to visit a buddy of mine, Steve, and somebody had said, you know what, you're having all these experiences, you should go check out these 3 books. So I had this list of 3 books to buy. I go to this bookstore that was iconic bookstore in Los Angeles called the Bodhi Tree Bookstore, Bodhi. You can Google it. You'll see a Wikipedia page on it. Unfortunately, it closed about 5-6 years ago, I guess. Okay. Anyway, but it was like a bookstore in a house. It wasn't like the mall bookstore. It was in a house that was converted, obviously. And so you walk into the place. I'd never been to it before, but I'd heard about it. and Bodhi, as in the Bodhi tree under which Buddha supposedly was sitting when he meditated, and all that. So Bodhi tree bookstore. I walk in, and you go into the living room. There's books. You go into the dining room. There's books. I wound my way into what used to be the kitchen in the back. More books. I pull a book off the bookshelf. I just pulled some random book off, and it was not one of the 3 books I was looking for, and I just opened it up. I don't know why. I just opened it up, and I'm looking at page 37 or something, and I start reading what I'd been material that I had just transcribed that I'd gotten from the other side 2 weeks earlier.
Wow.
What? Because I was still in this, like you and I were just saying, I was still in this. Am I making this stuff up or what? So anyway, that was like, what? And so then the bottom line, though, with the angel is that I found that many of them had an agenda, and they kind of wanted me to kind of help them promote their beliefs about the afterlife.
Okay.
And that's not the way I roll. I'm like, I want to find stuff out myself, and I assess it. I'm not here to be a spokesperson, in a sense, for somebody else's institutional beliefs.
Kelvin, are you going to tell me you turned them down?
I did.
Oh, wow. And you're still here?
And they're still around. Of course they're around. But so what has happened is, and not all angels are like this. So I don't want to paint this. I don't want people to get the wrong impression here. Not all disincarnate, we'll say disincarnate, beings who've never been incarnated, angels, I'm calling them angels. Yeah. Not all angels are like that, but a lot of them are. And there's a lot of angelic religions. There are 4, somebody told me, and I Googled it the other day. Somebody told me recently, it's 4,000 religions on planet Earth. 4,000 on planet Earth. Not major ones, but there's 4,000 different, I guess, identifiable religions on planet Earth. There's more than that on the other side. So I'm like, no, that's not what I'm signed up to do. I want to help people based on what I have figured out that works through my lens, and I'll filter it, and I'll take the information from them, but then I filter it. So it's not that I reject everything. It's that I want to be the filter. And so that's what I teach my students. It's not to reject everything. It's to not be blind follower of anybody, whether they have a body or not a body.
That's interesting, because a lot of people would just take that as verbatim. That's kind of like a spiritual truth. We've got to, the other side has given us information that's, let
me tell you a story that debunk that. Okay. So, I by the way, I've had NDEs. I had an NDE also when I almost drowned, but that's another story. So
that's on YouTube, though, isn't it? Guys can look at that.
Yes, it's on YouTube.
That's on YouTube. So guys can catch up with that one.
It's on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But here's one that I don't think is on. I'm not sure if it's in any of my YouTube videos. This one. There's a guy who had an NDE. He's up in San Francisco, and so he comes back from his NDE, and in his near-death experience, NDE, near-death experience, in his near-death experience where he almost died, there's 2 beings giving him advice about what he should do. He's on the other side during his NDE. One is his guru, who's telling him, no, you got to go back. You got to go back, and you got work. We got to finish what you were doing. And the other is this angelic type who's saying, no, you can come here. The being of light, he calls it. The being of light, a being of light saying, no, you can just stay here. You can stay here, and you can do all kinds of stuff, good work over here. So who do you listen to, right? Different opinions here is my point. Everybody who's on the other side, both the guru is dead on the other side, and the angelic being is, or I'm just calling angelic, but it's this light being who's never been incarnate is on the other side. They're having a dispute with each other with this person who had the NDE. Obviously, he listened to his guru and he came back. But the point is that if there's varying opinions on the other side, why would you listen to just the first person who you talk to?
I think humanity could be in trouble. the discussions, and I've seen the halls of learning, and I've seen, I know it's a concept, a human concept, very much so, but they will show us in a kind of human concept way to get us to understand or what goes on. But I've seen that debate, and I've seen like guides, helpers, and I know there's different levels that are with us. But I've seen them conferring and talking amongst themselves, looking down at us.
Yeah.
And it's vast.
Yes.
It's so vast. It's unbelievable. So
yes.
yeah, can you imagine?
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you've got a team of 5, you could potentially be in trouble.
If you had a team of 5, you probably have, out of those 5 on the team of your team on the other side, there's probably 55 different opinions amongst the 5.
So just, yeah, okay.
Because they get the 5 opinions, and you get these 2 talking to each other, and they get a different view than these 3, and all these combinations. It's
gonna get confusing. It is gonna get confusing.
That's why I always say, take what works and what resonates,
yes,
and leave the rest. Whether it's me giving my students advice, I say the same thing to my students, and I say the same thing to them. Doesn't matter if you're getting it from your dry cleaner, your college professor, or an angel guide from the other side. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kelvin, what is next for you?
Next for me is I'm continuing to do what I'm doing. I have 2 more books. I'm trying to get them out. I've been teaching so much, with COVID and everything. My meditation teaching is just ramped up. I think I'm booked through. My classes are booked into October, November, or something like that. Wow. That's front burner for me, if you want to call it front burner, as much as possible, is my next 2 books, because both of them are 3/4. They're like 7/8 done. Right. Just gonna finish them, and get them both out. They're both at the same stage right now. My 3rd book is the sequel to my 1st book. So as I referenced briefly, my 3rd book is the related fears about death and dying. So fear of pain and suffering, fear of losing loved ones, fear of leaving loved ones behind, fear of not being a good enough caregiver, that kind of related fear stuff. And then my 4th book is my memoirs, which is I'm going to go back, 6,000 years and talk about these couple of dozen lifetimes. And more than that, I'm going to talk also about how, all the different experiences I've had since I was born, go back to my first memories when I was about 1.5 years old, so forth.
Well, certainly your first 2 books are pretty good. I've really enjoyed reading them at this moment in time, but I've also been dipping in and out to your YouTube channel. So guys, if you're listening at home, check out Kelvin's YouTube channel. It's really good. So there's some good little stories on there, especially those of you that are having experiences yourself.
Right.
Have a little listen. So Kelvin, we've been going for over an hour.
Yeah.
We need to wrap this up. I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on Spiritual Talk and in conversation. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Paul. It's been fun chatting with you.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Great. Thank you.